Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of March 2025. I hope you are well. Apologies for the delay in getting this to you. There's a multitude of reasons for that, most recent being a 30-hour fucking migraine that I didn't need, didn't want, but nevertheless received. So, anywho. I kind of want to go off on a whole side quest about how exciting it is to be an Aries right now, but I'm going to probably save that to the extended. So with that in mind, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, you can do so via the extended, which is available at the end. You can get to that either through Selfie. Please note we have moved away from Vimeo because of their egregious practices. Just move out there a little bit. Apparently they've walked those back, but trust has been somewhat shattered. So, we're leaving them alone. There were a few issues with a few teething problems with Selfie last month. Some of those were my fault. Some of those were just unfamiliarity for other people with how it worked. And with others, it was just that the site did something strange. I've fed this back to Selfie, so hopefully we'll see some improvements on that. But the good thing about it was where there was an issue, I've been able to resolve it, which I could never do with Vimeo. So, it's a little bit more work for me, but actually it seems to be working much better for everybody on the whole. So we're going to give it another month, see how it goes. If people's experiences reverse, then we'll go do something else, right? That's we'll find somewhere else to put all of these things. Of course, it is also possible to access extendeds, all of the extendeds, over on Circle. So if you're interested in that, the link is down there. We've been doing some very, very interesting classes over there recently. But with all of that said, let's just see what's going on with you. We're going to be using the Llewellyn Tarot for you today. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but we are. But one thing that I am doing for all of the signs this month, just because I felt like we needed it, is pulling an oracle card from this deck here, which is The Liminal Forest by MJ Cullinane. I just fucking love her work so much. She's the artist who did the Crow Tarot. So what we'll do, because I can't shuffle these the way that I would normally shuffle cards, is we'll go for a 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1 shuffle. There it is. And then we'll cut the deck here. And this is your oracle card. We shall have a look at that at the end, see what it is. And in the meantime, we shall get on with the rest of the reading as we would usually experience it. So, let me give these one more good shuffle, because you can never shuffle a deck too many times, Aries. I think it became a bit like a stim for me, actually, but nevertheless. So, what does Aries need to know? Tell me, give me 3 cards for Aries, please. What's going on with Aries? So, we have the 6 of Cups in your recent past. Not too much of a surprise about that, but I'll get into that in a second. Tell me about current energy, please, for Aries. Ooh, we have the 5 of Wands on its side. This that I actually like for you, Aries. I might not necessarily like it for any other sign, but I do kind of like it for you. And what's coming towards Aries, please, for March? The Chariot. Oh, I love that. Now that's Cancer in the major arcana, but I think for a sign such as yourself, the Chariot is probably very fucking welcome right now. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Page of Cups, and I also like that because I think it's reflective of this this new version of you that is stepping forward, Aries, right? Just on time. We look at the astrology and whatnot. But it's almost like the culmination of everything that you've been through in the last few years. It has been hard. Things have been difficult. And I would be the first to recognise that that's something that's happened for you. But I do feel like where you are right now is better, right? We wouldn't want to go through what you went through before, but where you are now is better. And even more potent than that, I do feel like it's about to go off like a rocket for you. And there are reasons for that. The astrology is something we'll get into in a second. But there's a much more harmonious version of you that seems to be emerging, right? More evolved, more mature, distinctly more powerful, I would say, than you were before. And a lot of that has got to do with the way that you have processed your emotions, but you're allowing them to take you in a slightly different direction. I mean, some of it might be about the way that you've been able to, on one hand, control your emotions, on the other hand, actually actively explore your emotions. It's not something, generally speaking, that we associate with the sign of Aries. But things were so emotionally volatile for you for such a long time. Like, this feels much more peaceful. This feels much more harmonious. I'm about this all day long. So let's get some clarifiers on the table, and then we'll have a little chat about the astrology, because this is a really significant time for you, Aries. And I would say more than that, it's actually a really significant time for everybody who isn't an Aries, who's looking at you to say, how the fuck do we do this? I actually don't know. Let's look to Aries, because Aries is the person, the energy, the moment, I think, right? This is where you get to step forward as a leader, but in a true kind of empress style, which is highly significant. Anyway, tell me about the Six of Cups. Why is this here for Aries, please? So we have the Three of Wands. Interesting. And we have the Nine of Cups. I like that combination a lot. Tell me about the Five of Wands, please. We have the Emperor and we have the Ten of Wands. Uncomfortable, but very, very necessary, and very much in keeping with, the energies of the moment. Again, tell me about the Chariot card. Wow. So we have the Eight of Pentacles. Love it. And we have the Knight of Wands. Wonderful. I like that supportive fire energy. You've got Leo and Sagittarius tipping up on the table for you here. So let's just put those clarifiers on that deck under there. We have the Queen of Pentacles. This is also significant for you, because it is one thing that I recognized that was going on with Aries during the very, very difficult period that you went through. There was a very, very difficult lesson being shown to you in terms of the importance of actually looking after yourself, right? The importance of self-care. Now, that is a word that 10 years ago would have made me sick up on my own shoes. I just felt like the most self-indulgent thing that anybody could even think about. And, a lot of that was a reflection of the fact that stuff was very hard and I had to work and there was nobody else to do it, and I mean work in all areas of my life. I was just in a state of perpetual exhaustion. And the idea of making time for self-care was something that seemed so monumentally self-indulgent to me. I didn't know how anybody could justify it to themselves. But of course, I had to hit peak crisis, peak exhaustion, before I started to understand that actually I was allowed to look after myself. And more than that, it was something that helped me do more, be more than I was currently managing. I think a very, very similar message a very, very similar lesson has come through for you, Aries, in so much as you were so used to taking on all the responsibility onto your shoulders. And this sense that, oh, it's okay, Aries will do it. Like, Aries always knows what to do in a crisis, or Aries always knows how to, clean up some sort of disaster that's happened, right? And the reality is, well, yes, that is true, but there was the question that was always bubbling away in the background, which was, and who's going to look after me? Like, it's not just the fact that you could do it, it was the expectation from everybody around you that you would do it. And that was something that you didn't feel like you could put down, right? In the way that affects all of us at some point or another. It's kind of like, there's too much going on, I don't know how I do it. And the universe came in with the tower and it just kicked you again and again and again and again. And you're like, fuck. You've rebuilt from the ground up, Aries. And this is really, really significant. Like I said, the fact that you are willing to kind of engage with your emotions and maybe even articulate emotions. Because it's not just that you wouldn't have said how you actually feel. It's that in all reality, you probably didn't even really know how you felt because you never had the time to actually, internally reflect on these kind of things. And in the process of building yourself back up as you have done, and that's been, it's been amazing to watch, but it's also been quite difficult to watch at the same time because I have done, obviously I've been here every month doing the collective overviews for the signs, but I've done an awful lot of readings for Aries as well. And the stories are heartbreaking, but also incredibly fucking inspirational because you're like, well, you just don't stop. I have a lot of respect for that. But it's trying to work out how to come at it from a healthy angle so that you are not in a constant state of depletion, which you were for a very long time, right? So now we're coming from a place of strength, we're coming from a place of power, because at the very least, you understand there is a need to look after yourself now. So we start over here with your recent past, and we have the Six of Cups. Not entirely surprising because we do have two planets going into retrograde. One of them is already there, one will be going in later in the month, stationing to retrograde and then going in your sign. So those two planets are Venus and also Mercury. Venus is, like I said, currently in retrograde. She started in your sign and she will retrograde back into Pisces. And Mercury is also stationing retrograde and will retrograde all the way back into Pisces. So what we've got is we're going back over something. And then at the point where both of these planets have their cazimi with the sun, right, they're going to be reborn effectively, and then they will track back through Pisces and they will cover the degrees of Aries that they have already covered. Now, it goes without saying, when a planet hits a retrograde point, what it's doing is it's going back over things. We are revisiting, reassessing, reevaluating things that are mercurial of nature and Venusian of nature. So for Venus, for me, it sits squarely on the idea of value. What are your values? What do you value? Who do you value? Do you value yourself? Right, we've got some sort of overhaul in terms of the value principle going on. Now, when you've got Mercury going in retrograde, we're kind of going back over things that we've planned, things that we've thought about, things, the way that we express ourselves. It's essentially, in both instances, it's a looking back and making sure that a lot of the things that we think are still in alignment with who we actually are. It's a good time for tossing out old, outdated patterns of thinking and patterns of assigning value to things as well. So that when it comes back into the sign of Aries, like we've got a very, very clear idea of what we value, what we think, why. We've tidied up any old situations that needed some sort of resolution, and then we're able to move on. What's really interesting is it's already showing up here in your recent past. So I don't know if you got the jump on the energy, Aries, which is entirely possible, or that there was something that happened relatively recently that had you kind of thinking about the past. I mean, for some of you, it might quite literally be just how fucking far you've come in the last few years. I've never seen such a long, protracted tower moment in another sign as I did for you, Aries. I saw it for Leo happening between 2017 and the end of 2018, and that was rough. But yeah, that was the eclipses in that was the eclipses in Leo, and now we had eclipses in Aries. So there's these are karmic positions, these are karmic influences that do change everything, and you've been through that, right? It's quite literally a death and a rebirth. So we've got the Three of Wands and we've got the Nine of Cups here, indicating forward movement. But towards, what is it towards? Well, it's what makes us happy. The Nine of Cups is a card for me that talks about how we manage our emotions principally, but it also has, additionally to that, it also has the idea of moving towards those things that give us a level of emotional fulfillment, right? It's understanding what you actually really want. If you ask most people that question, what they will do is reel off a list of things that they don't want, and that's a very, very different thing. So we've got you kind of musing on the past, or maybe having come into contact with some aspect of the past, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or literally physically, and seeing how far you have come in settling yourself, straightening yourself out, right? The emotional maturation that is now allowing you to reach towards what you do want, rather than looking for a cessation of the things that have felt very difficult for you. I mean, that is growth. There's no other way of looking at that. That's a growth position. Do I want to get another deck out here? I do. Let's have a look. And what's useful about that is that as these planets turn retrograde, right, you have a skill set now of being able to go back over and reevaluate stuff without it feeling like it's going to crush your ego or it's going to destroy anything. It's like you understand the process now. And I think when we understand the process, that's half of the battle. Then we can start utilizing the energy in a way that is really beneficial for us. Allow this. Yeah, so we've got the Two of Pentacles and we've got the Temperance card in reverse. Now the Temperance card in reverse is a card of instability, right? If in the upright it's talking about equilibrium and harmony and having kind of you know got through very difficult experiences, then we arrive at a place where we are feeling much more balanced, right? And we're grounded. We've got 1 foot in the emotions or 1 foot on the ground, like everything's kind of straddling. The ability to be able to fill our own cup. Now, this feels to me like it's an understanding of where that there's still work to be done. But rather than this being something that you shelve for another time, or something that maybe you might have even tried to duck and weave away from, it's kind of like, ew, that's just a little bit too much right now and I don't really have the spoons for it. It's like there's a willingness to engage. This is Jupiter in Capricorn. Capricorn's always it's a cardinal sign like yours, right? So it's about what's the direction of travel, where are we going? It's always pointing in some sort of direction, and it's very much kind of future facing, where Aries is very immediate. Capricorn's like, well, that's the thing that I want right over there, and I'm going to retro engineer the steps to work out how it is that I'm going to get there. So we've got that Capricorn energy at play with this here also, but we've got this sense that we're willing and ready and able to start putting some distinct energy in that direction, right? Because Jupiter always expands whatever he touches, for good or for ill. He expands whatever he touches. And the Two of Cups is the Two of Pentacles is a card that's about coping, right? And there's often this kind of distance between what is going on emotionally in the background and the day-to-day mundane grind of how we chop wood and carry water out here on this material plane. It's kind of like, yeah, well, we'd all rather be the souls that we actually are, just kind of like swooping around in the energy and whatnot. But the reality is we're here and we have to do stuff, right? You know that. You've never shirked away from that. But it's a different kind of way that you're approaching it now, because it's so mindful of the energetic cost. I mean, like me, I'm pretty sure you will discover that there is a cut-off to how many spoons you can borrow against tomorrow before you suddenly realise that you've got not only a completely empty drawer now, but tomorrow's drawer and the drawer of the day after are also similarly depleted. It's like it always catches up with you at some point. So this underlying structure that you are creating, which is much more reflective of what you feel able to do, rather than this more, these kind of parentified words of like what you should do, is showing you where there remain some imbalances. And I think using the retrograde energy is a really, really good way of just ironing out those wrinkles, because again, like compared to who you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you are almost an entirely different being now. There is no fear in doing this kind of work in the same way that there was before, and you're not having the universe like smacking the shit out of you to force you to do it. It's being voluntarily undertaken. And again, it's another one of these ways in which it's reflective of this far more mature Aries energy that seems to be coming to the fore right now, which I fucking love, right? So when we come into your current energy, we have the Five of Wands on its side with the Emperor, which is wonderful. That's your card, Aries. And the Ten of Wands. And I think this is really, really fascinating because the overlapping retrogrades happening in your sign and then going back into Pisces are going to have the effect of intensifying whatever these retrogrades are about. And I should be clear, you know, if you're an Aries ascendant and you're watching this, all of this is happening in your first house, right? So it's very much about your core identity, but it's also about your body and things like that, right? It's very different to if you happen to be, I don't know, a 6th house Aries sun, or I don't know, 12th house Aries moon, something like this. It's quite important, and I would really counsel that you do this, that at the very least you pull up a copy of your birth chart so you can see where these dominant energies will be playing out. Each one of the houses relates to a different aspect of your life. And if you've got a lot of energy in the first house, that's going to present very differently to where you might have a lot of, where Aries is ruling, for example, your 7th house, and that's where your sun is. It's got a very different feel to it over there. You can get some clues as to how it is that your life is going to change, and Aries it is going to change, by looking at that and seeing what it's all about, right? The Five of Wands is Saturn in Leo. And it's not given to be a terribly comfortable card. As you can see here, we have people in a state of active conflict going on, right? And it's difficult to tell often from this card whether what we've got is an all-out war, you know, in which your skills of chopping and hacking and slaying and so on and so forth were coming very, very useful, or whether what we've got is a bit of a frisk, right? Bit of a spar, bit of a play fighting. It's difficult to tell. And I think when there's something quite interesting in that, because when we're in the grip of struggle, it's very difficult to kind of put the context in it. Most of the time we just think, oh, when this stops, everything's going to be better. But the Five of Wands has another meaning, which I do think is the one that applies here in your case, Aries. And that is because no card in the tarot is all good or all bad or means only one thing. We're talking about the spirit of competition, the spirit of the kind of drive that pushes you through difficult situations because there is something that you are winning at the end of it. The Five of Wands is one of those cards that I don't feel can be read in isolation. It's almost like the appearance of it implies the appearance of the Six of Wands, which is victory. We like that. That's Jupiter in Leo, right? We like that very much. But for it to really have any kind of significance at all, there needs to have been something that has challenged us in the preceding period of time, right? Because then we win and it actually means something. I've used this example before, and I think it's spot on. It's a bit like, being involved in a race. Say it's a half-mile race, and you're pitted against world-class sprinters, and you come first. That really fucking means something. If you're to pit yourself against a toddler, which is not particularly difficult, there's no way a toddler's going to run half a mile without getting distracted by something, right, and just going off in a different direction altogether. Your victory in that case would mean fuck all. In fact, people would look at you going like, why are you like, yeah, around the place, when that was no competition, though. There was no struggle there. There was no huge competitive mastery, right, that was being exhibited there. I feel like this is the thing that is quite strong. Now, we do need to take into account that this card showed up on its side, and for me this is very, very specific recently. These cards that are showing up on their side are energies that are here, but they're kind of latent. They're waiting for some sort of activation, right? Either from you or from a certain turn of the wheel that needs to happen before everything starts to unpack, the universe unfolding as it should. It's here and it's getting ready. Mars, your ruling planet, is now moving direct, thankfully, after that Mars retrograde. I don't know how you found that, but just certainly the last 4 days of that, I was kind of crawling along on my fucking elbows, just being like, please fucking end. I can't end your retrograde or end me. I cannot cope with this any longer. But we got to the end. It's all good. But he is still in the sign of Cancer, which, generally speaking, he's not a fan of, and he is moving quite slowly at the moment as well. I think it's going to be some point in April before he actually shifts into Leo. Nevertheless, I feel like you're aware it's there, Aries. There's a high level of intuition that at some point fairly soon this is going to kick into gear. And what I find really interesting is that you seem to be doing the chopping wood and carrying water that I was talking about before beneath the surface. It's like this high level of intuitive tweaking that everything's about to change and change dramatically, and that you're going to need to show up as the absolute, manifestation of Martian energy that you really are. Because we talked about this a bit, Aries. That you seem to be doing things differently, but at no point was this actually taking away from you what you were really fucking good at, which is being first, being big, exploring, innovating, being quite literally the sign that is the act of creation, right? There's nothing and then there's something, and that something is Aries right there. There's a whole train of thought that Aries is the most powerful sign in the zodiac, and I do think that there's something in that, because the push to create something from nothing versus expanding what is already there, or grounding something that is already there, or providing some sort of direction for something that is already there, takes considerably less effort than to literally create something out of nothing. And this is where you are right now, and you seem to be toiling below the radar with the absolute knowledge that at some point this big Aries energy that is you is going to come out, and it's a force. The Emperor, reflective of this more disciplined version of you, which is creating the order within yourself rather than what is going on outside of you. And that's quite interesting, because fire signs are very outward expressing, and they're not comfortable generally with the level of introspection that has been requested of Aries in the last few years. But there's an adjustment there, and you are much more disciplined. You are much more structured internally in a way that feels powerful to you. Not much going on outside of you, it feels, at this point, but we know that situation is not going to last for too much longer. We've got the Ten of Wands here, indicating that actually what is currently burdensome, the grind, the way that you are applying yourself, and just, literally one foot in front of the other, this needs to be done, and now this needs to be done, and this needs to be done, right? This kind of consistent effort is going somewhere. And it's possibly reaching its peak right now. Look at this. We've got the Three of Swords, and we've got the Magician, and I fucking love this for you, because the Three of Swords is pain, right? The heart obviously representing the emotions, and then the swords representing facts, truths, informations that come in that disrupt that harmonious emotional energy. And I don't feel like for you that is something that is happening right now. I feel like this is of old, for sure. And there seems to be some really interesting way in which you are involved in an act of transmutation. So everything that has been fucking difficult, everything that has jarred you, not just over the last couple of years, but actually, perpetually since youth, things that may have seen you, flaring up in some sort of really, really dramatic way. It's like, no, this is all useful. This is all wisdom level stuff. And this transmutation is now like, it's the difference between being proactive and reactive, Aries. And I think this maturation that we're talking about, all of these other things that we've been talking about so far, is the shift from reactive to proactive. It's a very, very different. And this proactive side of you is getting ready to, not just manifest, but get to that point of absolute creation that we were talking about, right? Well, let's just talk about the rest of the astrology just before we go on, because this is important for you. If I don't speak to any other sign about it, I've got to speak to you, Aries. And some of you might be familiar with, this 0 degree Aries being this incredibly fucking potent, very, very powerful point. And we have a clusterfuck of planets all seemingly trying to squish into this same position. For all of us, it's indicating a huge amount of energy and power that is going into some aspect of this, some part of our lives. Again, have a look at your birth chart to see where it is. Because not only do we have Venus and Mercury going back over this point and then coming over it again, that's quite powerful right there. We also have, at the end of this month, solar eclipse in your sign, in Aries. And solar eclipses denote big new starts in things, right? But because it's the last eclipse in the old eclipse cycle that we were in, it could well see a big boost in what was already initiated by last year's solar eclipse in Aries, because sometimes they can take 6 to 12 months to play out. I mean, in some instances it can be a full 18 months. So we've got a tremendous amount of creative power going into that. Then we also have Neptune moving into your sign literally the next day. This is big because this is a generational defining planet. Over the course of the next few months, we are also going to have Saturn moving into Aries. And then to top it all off, we've got a lunar eclipse in Virgo happening this month, the 14th, 15th. 14th. I think it's the 14th of March. And so whatever house is ruled by Virgo for you in your chart, that's where we're going to see some sort of big release, some sort of purge, some sort of letting something go. We are in remarkable times, Aries, and you're right at the front of it, as you should be. So for you to get to this point of transmutation where you can take what previously would have made you highly reactive and maybe, expressing your damage out in the world because hurt people and all that kind of thing. There's this massive transmutation that's happened in the last 2 years. And now it's about focusing your will, and you are willful, into the act of pure creation, not reacting to something. It's like, no, I'm creating. And we see this reflected here in the in what's coming towards you for March. We have the Chariot. Now, this is Cancer in the major arcana, and that is currently where your ruling planet is sitting, as I said before, right? In the sign of Cancer. But the Chariot has other meanings other than just its, astrological correspondence. The Chariot can talk about victory and success and winning, but generally that comes by having made a really good plan and being disciplined enough to be able to see that through. You do have that now, Aries, right? This kind of chopping and changing thing. A bit like Sag in that respect, right? It's kind of like, I'm over here, and now I'm over here, and now I'm over here. Oh, I've been doing this too long, it's really fucking boring. Now I'm going to go do something else over here, right? You've brought the consistency, you brought the discipline. You do now see things through from their inception to their, completed end result. And it's that ability to be able to do that is another one of the reasons why this is so very fucking powerful. But the Chariot also talks about equilibrium and balance, and because it is a water card, we're talking about in terms of emotionally and what is going on inside of you. Right now, we have harnessed up the horses, and the horses are the polarities that exist within us, right? The light and the dark, the night and the day, the shadow and and the light side, right? The negative and the positive, however you want to look at it, you know, the difficult experiences and the good ones. And it's like each one of these has something really useful to tell me about myself, because this ultimately is a card of the self. It's about self-worth, self-knowledge, self-discipline, self-motivation. It's about incredible levels of insight that allow you to remain balanced no matter what is going on outside of you. We have the force of the horses, but the horses almost look like they're made of water in this depiction here. I've always loved this card for that. And you're the charioteer. You're the one who has harnessed all of this up. You are the one who's created the balance, and you are the one that is controlling the direction of travel, the speed of travel, everything. It's amazing. Eight of Pentacles down there. Discipline, mastery, hard work. I mean, in some ways, the Eight of Pentacles is about our great work, right? So not just what you do for a job, not what, you know, not just what you do day to day, but like literally the fucking point of you incarnating into, you know, a human meat sack is being undertaken here right now. This is immense, Aries. It's huge. And it says, not only do you have that force, that creative spark, that ability to create something from nothing, but now you also have the drive, endurance, commitment, and discipline to see it through to something else, which is fucking outstanding. And the Son of Wands, which is the Knight of Wands in a standard deck, is about the fact that it's now. It's happening now. Right now, something is taking off, something is moving. You know, you've got this this awareness that it is building, that there is some way in which you get to be a contender again, Aries, right? I'm thinking like proper like Rocky kind of level shit right here, right? To here, now we have the expression of it. The time is now. It is happening now. It is here. Now, I don't think that the entirety of the month of March has that here, now kind of feel to it. But certainly, as we're getting towards the very last week of the month, it feels like there's an intensity that is building, and you're going to know intuitively that it is time for you to act. Now, on the slightly more mundane level, we could see you changing direction in terms of jobs that you're doing, in terms of the industry that you're involved in. It could be that you're, you know, moving from being employed to being self-employed. We could see anything along that kind of kind of direction. We could see also money that you've been putting away to save for something, right? Whether it's a house or some sort of move or a holiday or whatever, right? If from that point we could see you actually having achieved what it is that you were setting out to save for, right? There's your pot of money. Now you can do the thing. But all in all, it's an absolutely fucking immense month, Aries, and it doesn't stop here. It's just going to build and build and build. Like I said, I think it's July, early July, that Saturn moves into Aries, and that's going to feel very different. Neptune moving into Aries is going to feel very different. I think the surreality that Neptune and Pisces has brought to proceedings, honestly, I don't know about you, I'm fucking done with it, right? I want to start seeing some action. I want to start seeing some movement. I actually want to find a way and navigate through all of this chaos. And that's not all Neptune's fault, but there's something. So when I say like people are going to be looking to you, Aries, to work out what the next step is, I don't mean just like your husband or your wife or your kids or something like that. I mean literally everybody's looking at Aries to go, how the fuck do we do what happens next? Because everybody's going to be experiencing this kind of 0 point energy of this energy of the 0 point of Aries somewhere in their chart. I actually did a really long workshop actually with Louise Tanner Munson from Feel Good Astrology recently, which is over on Circle. So if you're a member of Circle, you can go and access that, and it's 4 hours long, right? It's in depth. And it's giving you a lot of information about what you know, how to harness this energy and use it to its fullest potential. And there's not one person who's going to be excluded from having that kind of energy bursting through their lives. And most of us, I would say, particularly if you don't have any placements in Aries, most of us are going to be a little bit overwhelmed with just how much fucking energy and drive there is in a particular direction. The card that you have is rumination, and I feel this fits very nicely what is going on with here. Like, this is not an energy that we usually associate with Aries, right? Because it's always about action. You know, doing this thing, I'm doing this thing, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm here, I'm exploring. This reflection, and I would say rumination actually is a better word for what I'm talking about, has given you so much, Aries. Because nobody's going to look at an Aries and go, you're lazy, you don't do enough. You know, anything that comes to activity is you're beyond reproach. You're always doing. But giving yourself the space to ruminate, I think, has given you a gift internally that you could not have accessed any other way. So now, moving forwards, you get to be Aries with all of that power, but you also have this incredible bank of wisdom that you've built up that is sitting behind it, and that is the nature of the Emperor. Remember that the Emperor, whilst representing you, is also not only the archetypal father and authority figures and things like that, but he is the King of Kings. Every single one of the kings is an aspect of the Emperor. So here, you know, there's the obvious kind of correlation with the King of Wands, right? Doing. But he also has the King of Swords, and he has the King of Cups, and he has the King of Pentacles. You know, he can harness all of those energies at once, or he can pick and choose what is needed in the moment. You've been tooled up, Aries, and you're about to get considerably more powerful than you thought was possible. And you're doing it in a slightly different way to the way that you expected it would have to happen. And I think that's magnificent. So I'm going to, I've been chuntering away for ages. I'm going to go to the extended now. You're very welcome to join me over there if you would like to do so. You can come over to Circle. You can come to Selfie, not Vimeo, Selfie. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. This is where it starts. I think this is where all the hard work really, really pays off for you, Aries, even more so than it has been doing so far. And I'm really excited to see it for you. I really am. So, know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.